Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be walking you through a beat that I made for Herbo's newest album that just dropped last Friday, strictly for my fans too. Of course, it's a Herbo joint, gotta keep it dark, nice melodies of course, nice little drum pattern. But before we get into this, make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe. We're on the way to 1,000 subs, so all the love is appreciated. And as well as that, I've got a bunch of free drum kits down for you in the description, so make sure to go grab some. But without further ado, let's get into the video. First thing you need to know is this beat is scaled at D minor and it's at 156 BPM. But the first VST that we are using is Contact 7, and we're using the bank, Strings of Winter with the preset violas, SL Punch, Spiccato. And as you guys can see from the pattern that I laid down, it's essentially very simple, just a repeating root note, just with a bit of variation going up along the top. If we break it down really, these root notes, they have the same note length the whole way through. However, when we look up here where the A sharp is, as you can see, I've kind of like staggered the notes a bit, made them repeat a bit, just to add a bit of variation, a bit of a bounce to the melody. Then all I had to do is actually just copy and paste this over, and then just mess with the pitch of them. So I took it up one semitone, and took it up two semitones, and then back to the B. But another important thing to know is, because we're making Herbo beats, you gotta keep a bit of a dark vibe. So from what you can see here, we are using notes that are in tension, which is bended one semitone apart, giving it a nice dark vibe. And then the last thing I did to make it sound just a bit more human and authentic, I clicked Alt R, as you guys can see, randomizing the velocities below, making it just sound a bit more human. And without further ado, this is what the first part of the melody sounds like. And there you have it. And before I show you the mix, when I made this, I can't lie, it kind of reminded me of like the Call of Duty theme. If you know what I'm saying, then you know what I mean. But like, anyways, as for effects, the first thing we've got going is an EQ, just very basic, cutting off all the lows and ducking a few harsh frequencies. Then we've got ourselves an instance of RC20, pretty much the Vinyl 1 preset, duck the distortion a bit and then turn the noise off. And then last but not least, we've got ourselves an instance of Valhalla Vintage Verb, creating a bit of ambience, adding some reverb of course, and this is like the preset that I've made. And then last but not least, I stereo separated the sound 28% just to give it a bit of width in the whole stereo. So next up, we got ourselves an instance of Expand 2. And the preset that I am using is the Producer Brass, which is of course part of the Brass and Woodwind bank. As for the pattern, again, it's very simple, but of course it complements the string really well. Just laying down the root note essentially, and it repeats itself every 2 bar. But I just cut off the end of each note because I think it gives it a bit of tension. It just makes it sound better in my opinion. But that's really it. So without further ado, this is what it sounds like. And there you'll have it. As for effects, again, it's quite simple because, sound selection is key, so really just keeping it simple with these effects. Basic EQ, of course, cutting off all the lows and just duck this frequency over here. And then on top of that, I just added a slight bit of reverb just because I wanted the whole instance to sound kind of more grand, add a bit more space to it all. And then I stereo separated it 28% as well, just like how I did with the strings to widen it a bit, giving it a bit more of a grand feel considering it sounds a bit orchestral. And now, last but not least, the final VST for the melody, Contact 7, yet again, and the bank that I'm using is the Ethno World Instruments, as you guys can see from the wood and brass section. Got myself this Nay Flute Licks, that's the preset I used. And as you guys can see, I've just got myself 2 phrases coming here and here, a bit of variation, but also just makes it sound a bit harder to be honest. So without further ado, this is what the full melody sounds like. And there y'all have it. Of course, sounding dope. Can hear Herbo just spitting over this already. But before we get into the drums, time to show you the last effects. So first thing I did was just cut off all the unwanted frequencies, which were all just below 500 hertz, 1k hertz to be honest. All of it was just a bunch of clicking and popping sounds. Then I added of course a bit of RC20, similar to the first preset where no noise and just duck the distortion. And next up, I added some shaper box just to create a bit of panning with the woodwind, you know what I mean? Giving it a bit of variation, giving it a bit more uniqueness to the whole melody because, again, with a simple 3-part melody, you want to kind of vary it up a bit, so adding this in was a nice little texture. And of course, last but not least, some Valhalla Vintage Verb, just giving that extra bit of ambience, making it sound more eerie, especially complementing the flute so nicely. And as you guys can see, no stereo separation at all. But of course, it's now time for the drums. And first things first is of course the clap pattern. As you guys can see, very simple, very basic, standard clap pattern we've got. However, I have layered this clap over with a snare, which I'll just show you now. And as you guys can see, this is the snare that I've layered over it. Essentially, I've also got some extra notes playing here, and a nice little roll at the end. So it just kind of goes back and forth with the clap, because when the clap and snare hit together, it sounds like its own sound, and then those notes that I've highlighted just sound like their own other sound in its own area. And then next up, we got ourselves the hi-hat pattern, which is very simple two-step. Sometimes you don't even need to make it complicated. So without further ado, this is what the clap / snare pattern alongside the hi-hats sound like. And there you'll have it. As you can see, already just with the snares and the hi-hats sounding super dope, makes it already sound evil and murderous. Just wait till we get the rest of the drums in. And speaking of the rest of the drums, we've got ourselves the 808 pattern, of course. As you guys can see, very nice. Repeats itself pretty much every 2 bars, you can see right here. Just copy it over, and again, and then again. However, for a bit of variation, just add this nice little roll at the end over here. And then another important thing that I do to my 808s, which is something I stress in every video, and this also applies to the kicks: max your velocities out always. The way I do this is I click Ctrl 8 to highlight everything. Then using the scroller wheel, I max the velocities by scrolling all the way up. In doing so, it makes your kicks and your 808s hit much harder. They sound so much better in the mix. And at the end of the day, you're making a hip hop beat, so this will appeal more to artists and producers alike. And as for the kick pattern, it's essentially just the 808 pattern repeating itself. But I just didn't include many of the rolls that were going on here, just kept a simple kick again. And the velocities were maxed out as well. So without further ado, this is what the 808 and the kick sound alongside the whole drums. And there you'll have it. As you can see, sounds super dope already. Herbo would actually just kill this beat. And last but not least, we got ourselves the open hat. Literally just comes in every 2 bar. Simple pattern, just a nice little open hat at the beginning, just to add a little bit of a pizzazz, you know what I'm saying? And now, without further ado, this is what the full beat sounds like for Herbo's new album. And there you'll have it. As you can see, we got ourselves the full beat for Strictly For My Fans 2. Herbo would definitely kill this. But before we wrap it up, let me just show you the beat breakdown. So, by looking at the beat, very simple structure. But let me just break it down real quick. First things first, we got ourselves the 8-bar intro, having the horns, the strings, and all the basic drums in. Then we come into the chorus, where it's 2 8-bars, making it a total of 16. Remove the horns, with only the strings playing. Alongside that, we've pretty much just got all the basic drums. And then for the second half of the chorus, we got ourselves the strings again, with the horns reintroduced, and we got ourselves the open hat pattern just playing alongside that as well for a bit of variation. And then next up, we got ourselves the verse section. Of course, that's a total of 3 8-bars, making it a total of 24. And from what you can see here, pretty simple. Bringing it back again for the opening section right here, just playing it simple with the strings and all the basic drums. Then the core part of the chorus, which is the second 8-bar, just reintroduce the horns. And then for the third part of the verse, which is the final 8-bar, I like to call it the pre-hook, because it's the part just before the chorus where things start to build up again, making it obvious to the listener and the artist that, you know, we're about to hit the chorus. So from what you guys can see, got ourselves the whole melodic component, just playing alongside the 808. Very simple. And then of course, I just repeat it again. Same verse pattern, except this time I just introduced the flute at the beginning, and then same chorus at the end again, but I just add the flute in for, you know, variation. And there you guys have it, the beat breakdown for you all. I went through the pattern, I went through the melody, I went through the drums, and of course, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Once again, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. All the love is appreciated. And thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy.